Primetime local news, serving the Lakeland and Midwest regions.
The council remuneration policy is being set for the first time since 2019. This year, the key change was having the mayor's salary set at 64.4% of the total average salary of a Saskatchewan and Alberta cabinet minister, compared to the 60.4% in 2019.
The rate that was set for the council today, from the basically elected in late October of 2020 to now, has not changed, and that was set in 2019 as it was outlined. So what came forward today, administration brought forward a recommendation to set the future council's pay, which will commence after the election of November 13th.
For the city councillors, their pay is based on 38.2% of the mayor's salary, which did not see a change from 2019.
Very bluntly, there was no raise in the last 4 years for myself or any of the council members, and this is setting the pay for the future council. And I think that's as fair as we can be. It's a challenge for us as councillors and mayor, because we're in essence voting on the salary, but we're voting on the future council salary.
The Royal Canadian Air Force is celebrating its centennial, and its 2024 demonstration team has a specially painted CF18 Hornet to show off at events. PATLN was at the unveiling and met the team behind it. We get more in this report. Major General Ian Huddleston, the Canadian NORAD Region Commander, kicked off the unveiling ceremony by presenting a certificate of appreciation to the team behind it.
Encompassing over 300 collective hours, the team transformed artwork into images for stencils, printing, layouts, removing the negative space, and creating new techniques to ensure perfection. Despite facing numerous challenges, including critical infrastructure issues and equipment delays, as well as long hours, their operational focus, enthusiasm, unwavering commitment, and tireless efforts resulted in the successful realization of this historic project.
The man behind this year's design for the Hornet, Master Corporal Kevin Kelly, said some special elements went into the images.
So I chose to represent our people with three silhouettes, so everybody can identify itself to one of the silhouettes over there. There's an officer, and CM, and also a pilot, and also the innovation and technology that I choose, and it's the main topic of the design. So it's why you can see at the rear of the aircraft a gear pattern that goes to binary. That's mean RCAF 2024.
Captain Caleb Tango Robert is looking forward to the upcoming season as it marks 100 years of the RCAF.
It's a tremendous year, 100 years of the Royal Canadian Air Force. We're celebrating a big birthday. I get to be the guy that gets to provide the entertainment, and it's just such an honor and a privilege, and I'm super excited.
For the CF18 Hornet's appearances at air shows and other events across Canada and the U.S., Corporal Jason Speck is in charge of keeping it looking spiffy.
I think definitely one of the biggest challenges is keeping it clean. Every time that he goes up or he lands, if you have a bit of grease on your hands, it usually ends up on the paint, so we have to wipe it down constantly every day. Especially as we start to get into this warmer weather, there's going to be a lot of bugs on the windshield, trying to keep that clean for all of the flights and the pictures. But other than that, so far it's been a really good jet to work with. No major issues, knock on wood.
Albertans will have 2 opportunities to see the demo team in action. It's scheduled to appear July 27th and 28th at Springbank and Villeneuve August 17th and 18th. Leanne Sanders, Primetime Local News. The Rotary Club of Lloydminster hosted its weekly meeting this afternoon, discussing the importance of land acknowledgements. Tanisha Young, the Indigenous Support Services Manager at Lakeland College, says that not only should people know the land they are on, but also know how these acknowledgements should be authentic.
I asked and talked to elders, and elders have said you should just say the land acknowledgement from the heart. It shouldn't be something that's been proofread and rewritten and researched. You should just know where you're standing and what that means to you.
Young says that over the years, both Lloydminster and Lakeland College have become more inclusive, and says land acknowledgements show recognition and respect for Aboriginal peoples.
Like in elementary school and being like, one of the few Indigenous learners, like I could never envision what Lloydminster is now, especially in Lakeland, and how inclusive some environments are.
The Lakeland College Indigenous Support Services Department offers help with cultural, wellness, financial, and academic needs. It's time now for Retrospect. Here is Callum Hawker.
This week in Retrospect, we take a look back to May of 1995 at some highlights of the Kinsman Rodeo.
We pick it up in Saddlebronc for one of the wildest rides of the day. Wainwright's Dwayne Pillman on Desperado from the Franklin Rodeo Company in Bonnyville. Pillman is on for the 8 and after. Pillman and Desperado both go down. Pillman scores a 76, not quite good enough to beat out Lloydminster Cowboy. Ian Freeman, who's 82 from Friday, holds up to be the best over the 3 days.
It's always a bonus to win in your hometown where people know you and stuff. Usually it makes most guys get really nervous and fall off in front of the hometown. And for a chance, I got lucky and stayed on, and it worked out for me.
Rags to riches. The next night you jump on Red Deer and you get bucked off.
Yeah, she had a really good trip, and I just lost my swells and couldn't get back in there, so it happens.
Great start to the season for you then. First place showing here, some pretty good cash. You can build on this.
Yeah, it's a good place to start. Get one win under your belt, it breaks the ice and gets you feeling a little better about rodeo, and away you go.
To bear back now, Lakeland Rodeo standout, the Midwest Kirk Jackknife on Smoke Screen. He is on for the 8 and collects a score of 69, but it's Cam Moores of Patricia, Alberta with a 79. Back on Saturday, he was tops in the event. Cliff Williamson won calf roping, while Jarrett Monroe was tops in boys steer riding. To the barrels now, a former Kinsman champion. Mary Bonagowski against Carson, North Dakota, turns all 3 barrels in a nice time at 13.24. But it's Amy Stone's time at 12.97 from Friday. That holds up as the top time of the weekend. To steer wrestling, while reigning world champion Blaine Peterson had a no time, here was the top time. Darren Shaw of Carsden gets out there and gets it done in a time of 4.5 as he takes top spot. To bull riding, he saw his brother win Saddlebronc. Merle Freeman on board at Dumas Walker looking to win his event, but he can't make the 8 as he gets bucked off. A bit of a scare here. Vincent Lambert on Katie. He gets bucked off and gets a mouthful of horn. He runs away, and he was okay. Here's her winning bull ride, Jack Watts on Copenhagen Braddock, and he is on for the 8 and collects a score of 88 as Jack Watts wins bull riding in the border city.
And in May of 1999, snow hits the border city just a few weeks into spring.
With spring a few weeks in, one's fancies usually turn to the birds and the bees, right? Well, Mother Nature had some different ideas here in the Midwest as we all awoke to what seemed a distant memory. By late afternoon, more than 8 centimeters of the white stuff touched Earth, and that brought some much-needed moisture. And while it's a given that area farmers are happy, local businesses that depend on the warm weather are also pretty happy.
Anytime you can add moisture to a situation like we've been through, where it's been quite dry in the area, it brings a certain optimism, at least we find, to the farming community. And of course, the more optimistic they are, the more confident they are about the economy.
Actually, I must say I don't mind the weather like this because it's bringing moisture for us. We'll take moisture in any shape, way, form. We can get it.
For those of you whose green thumb is twitching with anticipation to start your version of the Garden of Eden, the old advice still stands. Wait till the May long weekend.
Don't get excited just because we're getting a little bit of snow in April. It's not even May. Don't worry about it. Now, if it was May long weekend, end of May, then I'd start to worry about it because then the trees and shrubs would be all in leaf. And then with wet, heavy snow, then that's when we get damage. But people's tulips and stuff are just coming up now, so the snow is not going to affect them at all.
And for those of you who didn't take advantage of the first 2 weeks that the local golf course was open, well, you still have an entire summer ahead of you to get to the greens. And no one at the golf shop is too worried.
Weather's beautiful. We needed the moisture, and the snow really isn't going to hurt anything. Yeah, take about 3 hours of sunshine and it's gone. So.
And that's all for this week in retrospect.
Retrospect is brought to you by Webb's Machinery. Find New Holland products at Webb's Machinery, your dealer in Vermilion, Vegreville, Lamont, Wainwright, St. Paul, and Consort.
Abby St. John joins me now with the weather. And Abby, it's been a bit of a damp and cooler afternoon here today. What do we have in store for us?
Yes, we are expecting more of this. It's going to be quite a gloomy week and quite rainy, but we need it. I think especially now with fire season already starting, I think it's very, very important that we get the moisture now especially. But we are looking at a couple rainy, gloomy days ahead of us this week. Today wasn't too bad despite the heavy rainfall. It was a little bit of dribbles this morning, light showers, and then it kind of picked up as the afternoon went on, and we are expected for evening rain as well. It is currently 9 degrees, feels closer to 6 with that wind chill, so it is kind of chilly out. 20-kilometer-per-hour wind, so that's a little bit of a factor, but other than that, not too bad. And then current temperatures in Alberta, 9, also out in Marwayne, 12 in Bonnyville and Provost, 11 in Cold Lake, Edmonton and Wainwright, 10 in Vermilion, 14 in Vegreville, and 15 up in Lac La Biche. And in Saskatchewan, 16 in Isle Cross, 12 in Pierceland, Meadow Lake and North Battleford, 10 in St. Walburg and Maidstone, 14 in Macklin, and 13 out in Green Lake. Overnight tonight in North Battleford, it will drop down to 9 degrees, considerably cloudy, and there will be rain steadily in the evening, and then it will become intermittent as we go into overnight 20-kilometer-per-hour winds. And then tomorrow, breezy in the morning with periods of rain, and then it'll just be a cloudier day, and you may have some runoff of rain in the afternoon as well, but most of it should be in the morning. 22-kilometer-per-hour winds and a daytime high of 15. Overnight tonight in Cold Lake will drop down to 7 degrees. Rain and drizzle is the conditions for overnight, so expect that. Periods of rain overnight tonight, 17-kilometer-per-hour winds. And then tomorrow, a daytime high of 9 degrees, and it will be a little bit chillier, and there is expected to be rain throughout the day, 15-kilometer-per-hour winds. And then overnight tonight here in Lloydminster, we're also expected to get some rainfall overnight tonight and into tomorrow as well. 8 degrees will be our overnight temperature, 19 kilometers per hour. And then to break down tomorrow, around 6 a.m. it will be 8 degrees, 20-kilometer-per-hour winds, and it's predicted that there will be rainfall in the morning and continue into the afternoon. 9 degrees by noon, 22-kilometer-per-hour winds, and then it kind of tapers off in the evening. Just cloudy skies. 10 degrees by 6 p.m., 17-kilometer-per-hour winds, and then that rain will come right back at around midnight, probably earlier in the evening, closer to midnight overnight, 8 degrees, 19 kilometers per hour. And then over the next 3 days, like I said, we're expected morning rain tomorrow, but it should taper off by the afternoon with a low of 6. And then on Wednesday, milder with low clouds with a high of 16 and a low of 5. And then on Thursday, it will be a mix of sun and cloud throughout the day. However, it will be a little bit on the breezier side, but it will be nicer than what we are expecting Tuesday and Wednesday even. And it will be a daytime high of 20 degrees. So it's going to be quite warm out on Thursday. So that's very nice to look forward to after the rainfall. And then we'll have a daytime low of 5 degrees. That's the first look at your evening weather forecast. We'll have more news coming up after the break.
The Bordertown High School Rodeo took place this past weekend at the Lloyd X Rodeo grounds. Our Thomas Wildman has more on the event.
Here we go. Come on, Gunner. Keep lifting. Attaboy. Don't quit.
The Bordertown High School Rodeo saw kids from across Saskatchewan come to Lloydminster to compete in their chosen rodeo event.
Oh, it's pretty fun. It's like another opportunity.
The Bordertown High School Rodeo is a chance to compete closer to home for Lloydminster and area athletes, as most of the rodeos take place in the southern part of the province.
Oh, it's so nice for us. Most of our rodeos are, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours away, so for them to be able to come here, have all of their friends and families watch, it's just amazing for them.
Organizers and parents say while it takes hundreds of hours to compete in high school rodeo, it is well worth it to give the kids great memories and experiences.
It's just so important. The life skills that they're learning here, competition, teamwork, it's just all very important and teaches them a lot of good life skills that they take later on with them.
Thomas Wildman, Primetime, local news.
It's time now to have a look at all of the pet pictures you've been sharing with us for our Pets of the Day.
We want to see your pets. Send photos of your pet and their name to have them featured on Pet of the Day.
I'm happy to be joined here today by Constable Kelsey Davidge with the Lloydminster RCMP. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Now, with the warmer weather coming up and summer season fast approaching, motorcycle season is also around the corner as well. And so today we're going to be talking about how drivers and cyclists can stay safe when they're on the roads, whether it's in town or on the highway. So can we start off by kind of what the RCMP wants to remind drivers and cyclists when they are out this summer?
For sure. While motorcycles only represent about 3% of registered vehicles, Transport Canada reports that they are involved in 10% of road fatalities. We want to remind all drivers this summer season that it's their responsibility to keep the road safe, whether you're on a bike or in a vehicle.
And so what are some of the tips that people should be aware of when they are sharing the road with a cyclist or a motorcyclist?
Yeah, for riders, we always want you to gear up. Make sure you're wearing an approved helmet, eye protection with gloves, and have all any open skin covered, right? Whether that be leather or some jean. We always want you to be aware of your surroundings. Um, Smaller bikes make it harder for other drivers to see on those roadways. So avoid riding in a vehicle's blind spot and make sure you keep a safe distance. Know your abilities, always ride within your limits. It's always good to go practice on a roadway away from high traffic areas to build up your skill and confidence and avoid speeds and curves outside of your ability. We also always recommend to go to a course there where you could practice those skills and build up your confidence and advance your levels as a rider. For drivers, we always want you to be on the lookout. Those motorcycles, again, can sit in smaller areas or within blind spots, and make sure that you're always checking when turning or maneuvering your vehicle. Look out at intersections. A motorcycle may be harder to spot or hidden within other vehicles. As with all driving, always ensure an intersection is clear before proceeding through. And be courteous of those bikes. Never tailgate or be aggressive as aggressive driving is always dangerous no matter what you're in. Always leave space between your vehicle and motorcycles. And remember, motorcycles don't often have the same protections like a seatbelt or airbags as our conventional vehicles do.
And now just on I guess the bicyclists, we don't have any bike lanes in the city. So bikes have to share the road with drivers and they are significantly slower because they're not motorized. So for those people, what are kind of some of the tips that both cyclists and drivers can look out for when they're when they have to share the road with a bike?
Again, we always want anyone, no matter what age, to gear up and make sure they're wearing a proper helmet. We suggest looking up safe routes within our community, whether that be maybe you have to drive an extra 5 minutes, but you're going through a park versus a major highway. Always make sure, again, like that, you're looking before you're approaching an intersection. Make eye contact with that driver, and make sure someone sees you before you proceed through anywhere really.
And is there anything else that you would like to remind drivers or cyclists or whoever's on the road about these tips?
No, again, just be safe. Let's all enjoy this roadway, whether you're on a bicycle, a motorcycle, or a vehicle.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for once again joining me. It's always great to make sure that people are aware of the safety tips when driving this summer, especially when motorcycles start to emerge from their garages after a long winter. So thank you for joining me.
Yes. Thank you. Have a good day.
Furniture set and design supplied by Furniture Gallery, downtown Lloydminster.
Today I'm joined by Landon Bozer, a local author from Bonnyville, and whose books are going to be making their way to Lloydminster. Can you talk to me a little bit about what your book series is about?
What we got going on here is we have 4 different books that are based around the different animals that live in Canada. So we'll take you from west to east. We'll start over on Vancouver Island. You know, Vancouver is one of the most unique habitats in the whole world, and it's a real hotspot for um, eco activity. So we think that that was a great place to start. And this was actually the first book that my wife and I wrote, was the Vancouver Island edition. And largely because we lived out there for 2 years, and with all of the beautiful animals in nature, you know, pretty easy place to get inspired. Then we have the Prairie edition, which features, you know, we got all sorts of animals that you'll see in your own backyard here. We got a little groundhog. We got the rattlesnake that you might find around Calgary and southern Alberta. All sorts of cool critters. Then we have the East Coast edition for all of our Newfoundlander and Halifax friends that are out there. We know that there's plenty of East Coast people in the Lakeland, but we're not getting into the pictures on this one. You have to come down to Chapters and check it out there. And last but certainly not least, we have the Northern Territories edition. And you know, I think that's a pretty underserved part of the country. I actually spent some time in the Northwest Territories myself, and gosh, you want to talk about a beautiful place to live and play. It's definitely up there in the Northwest.
So this book series is going to be featured at Kohl's at the Lloyd Mall. Can you talk to me about how that process all got set up?
So my wife and I, we started writing the first book about a year ago, and by the time we finished all 4 and got them illustrated into the product that you have now, we've had these ready and for sale since about January of this year. So they're still fairly new. About a month ago, I have a sales background. I've sold everything from fire hydrants to oil field valves in my career. So I picked up the phone and just kind of started at a few different chapters locations, starting some different dialogue. And the chapters location in Southgate, Edmonton, were very receptive to our book, and they gave us some really good feedback and information and featured our books very quickly. From there, we got our vendor number with Indigo, which gives us access to all of the different chapters and Kohl's locations that are available. And for my wife Grace and I, Chapters Lloydminster was a really easy choice as sort of the first place we wanted to branch out of after the Edmonton location, because it is the closest location that we have here in the Lakeland. So we've actually both bought plenty of books at that store in our life, so it's pretty cool that we'll be on the shelf there soon.
How has this whole process been for the both of you to have this book series be finally hitting store shelves?
It's a lot of fun, and it's really encouraging for us to see that a good Canadian, you know, a product about Canadian animals or Canadian content, Canadiana, if you will, I do think it's always in demand. So to have gotten such positive feedback over a short period of time, it's really just encouraging us to try to be creative and maybe come up with more books, whether it's something central to the Lakeland, or if it's something maybe made around the oil field industry. We'd love the opportunity to work with somebody, a community group, or maybe another company that's looking to branch out in a little bit of a different direction, and maybe we could collaborate with somebody in the community on some other cool books.
All right, that covered everything that I had to say, Landon. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk about this.
Well, sadly for some fans, the Toronto Maple Leafs are clearing out their lockers after they were eliminated from the playoffs on the weekend. The Leafs are still stinging from the Game 7 overtime loss to the Bruins. They've won only one playoff series since 2017. The team is now facing questions over what changes need to be made to try to turn around their fortunes. But of course, closer to home, we're looking at the Oilers,
Yes,
and they're on
sure.
to the second round, so that's good news.
Yes, they're getting ready to play Vancouver, which is going to be interesting. Canadian series, which is always fun and exciting, and first game starts Wednesday, so it's going to be exciting. Hopefully, the Oilers can beat the Canucks.
Yeah, something to look forward to. So thank you very much for joining us tonight, and have a good evening.